welcome to my exercise application video number 18. We have been in class talking about the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, and we've just recently introduced the idea of acids and buffering, and so, I just did a chest day, so this isn't really specific to chest day, but I want to talk about what's going on inside of my body with acids. So in the body we have three main sources of acids, and I've mentioned this, but per homeostasis our body prefers a more basic environment, with the exception of things like our stomach, right, with hydrochloric acid. But the rest of our body prefers a more basic environment. So I'll talk about this in another video, but we have to deal with this acid we create. But a lot of it, when we are exercising, we are having more acid production. So what are those sources? Number one, glycolysis, when we're converting pyruvate into an lactate. We create hydrogen ions because that lactate, in fact glycolysis in the presence of excess NADH is going to become that pyruvate, in the presence of excess NADH is going to become a lactate and a hydrogen ion. The lactate is dealt with in the liver via gluconeogenesis. It can also, there's a transporter chain, it's called the MCT, the monocarboxylic acid transport, that can help deal with that, but we also, through the liver, can transport that through the Cori cycle. And actually, what I just said was wrong. The MCT, the monocarboxylic acid transporter, takes the lactate to the liver, where it's converted back into glucose through the Cori cycle. But that's source number one of our acid, because the free hydrogen ions act as an acid in the body. They lower pH, they denature our myosin, our actin, our hemoglobin, which causes us to have more oxygen, because the hemoglobin can't, its affinity is decreased with oxygen in the presence of high acidity or low pH. Calcium is blocked from binding to troponin, so our contraction can't occur if that troponin can't move. So it messes things up. So that's number one source of acid. Number two is CO2. So we create this in Krebs, but we also create this when we are turning a pyruvate into an acetyl-CoA, because we take a 3-carbon molecule, lop off one, it's combined with oxygen that we breathe in, CO2. So the CO2 in our muscle does not act as an acid, but when it gets into the blood, it's combined with water, H2O plus CO2, you get carbonic acid, which is a weaker acid, but it can dissociate into free hydrogen and then into bicarbonate. So it does eventually act as an acid, so it's kind of a pseudo acid. And then our third thing we're dealing with is actually when we're hydrolyzing ATP. So we've talked about the goldfish molecule, you get the depolarization, the T-tubules, the calcium feet, the calcium is released, troponin, tropomyosin, myosin heads can bind to actin, we crank. During that, as we hydrolyze ATP, we get ADP in one half stroke, then we get a inorganic phosphate, and then boom, we get a full cock of that cycle. But we also, in that process, are releasing hydrogen ions. And so when you think about it, like today when I was in the gym, as I'm exercising, I'm bench pressing, I'm cranking through a lot of those ATP, especially because I was doing heavier weight, so I'm in my ATP PCR system, so I'm using lots of ATP rapidly. I'm rapidly ramping up that acid level in my muscle. So that has to be dealt with, and I'll talk about how our body deals with that in a later video, but those are the three sources of acid in our body, and these are all increased as we exercise due to our bioenergetics. So yeah.